the shooting range. And this episode, Pages of History, the Schwalbe problem, tactics and strategy, playing on tanks with recoilless weapons, and Metal Beasts, a helicopter with a record-breaking BR. Today, we present you the Mi-28N Night Hunter, a Russian helicopter with a BR of, attention, 10.3. It can't be scared either by thunderstorms or by dark nights, and combines good agility, decent armor, well, for a helicopter, and most importantly, a wide selection of weapons. This machine is powered by two turboshaft engines with a capacity of 2,200 horsepower each, providing a speed of up to 300 kilometers per hour. The pilot and the gunner are protected by 40 millimeters of bulletproof glass in the front and 20 millimeters on the sides, plus a multi-layer armor made of aluminium and ceramics. The Night Hunter is armed with a 30 millimeter cannon on a rotating turret. 4 payload mounts let you additionally install the Igla air-to-air missiles, the Ataka ATGMs, 2 versions of unguided rockets, or 23mm cannons. The Mi-28N is a purebred attack helicopter. Its main trump card is the Ataka ATGM with a tandem warhead. The first charge knocks the reactive protection down, and the second one hits the armor without any problems. Being one of the fastest ATGMs in the game, it reaches a speed of up to 550 meters per second and covers a distance of up to 8 kilometers. For medium and short-range combat, you can use 2 types of unguided missiles. The S-8KO, with an explosive warhead, penetrates up to 400 millimeters of armor, and the heavy 70-kilogram S-13 missiles are filled with almost 20 kilograms of liquid explosives, and they just evaporate any light armored tech from the map. They aren't that useful against more protected targets, though, unless you aim directly at the enemy's roof. That way, you'll definitely send them back to the hangar. Also, don't forget about the autocannon. It may get lost in comparison with the impressive missile arsenal, but just read the numbers. A 30mm weapon with ground target's belt pierces up to 100 millimeters of armor. Finally, there are the Igla self-homing missiles against the enemy aircraft that lock onto the target and chase it at a speed of up to 1,000 meters per second. Now, let's talk about protection. Aluminium, ceramics, and laminated bulletproof glass reliably protect the crew from even the most heavy-caliber machine guns. Of course, the helicopter is unlikely to survive several shots from an autocannon or missile hit, but you can definitely forget about stray bullets. Another undoubted advantage of this helicopter is modern electronics. This modification isn't called the Night Hunter for nothing. There is an onboard thermal sight that makes it easy to find enemy targets, and now even a heavy rain isn't an obstacle anymore. On the contrary, it becomes a tactical advantage. The Mi-28 is perfect for a wide range of combat missions, but its best use is at medium range. If you're far away, you can become an easy prey for air defense systems like the American ADATS or the French Holland, as their missiles fly farther than the Ataka ATGMs. As for the long skirmishes in close combat, they can be too serious of a test for your armor. Germany became the first country in the world to create a jet fighter and start its serial production. The new plane received the name Schwalbe, which translates as swallow. and served as a manifestation of the Reich's technical superiority over the countries of the anti-Hitler coalition. But if the Germans were able to build 1,500 such fighters during the war, why didn't the United States or Great Britain do the same? Was the task impossible even for their well-developed industries? Or maybe there were other reasons. Let's figure it out. War is a multi-level phenomenon. To simplify things a little bit, science distinguishes three basic layers of war: tactical, operational, and strategic. On the tactical level, if you put the Schwalbe one-on-one against any Allied fighter, it would win without any problem. It surpassed its competitors in everything: in speed, in climbing, and even in armament. But if we look at the operational level, we'll see a lot of problems arising. After all, while one Schwalbe was being assembled in Germany, 10 Mustangs, 8 Thunderbolts, 6 Hellcats, 4 Corsairs, and 4 Lightnings would exit the assembly lines in America. Don't forget to add the British Spitfires and Typhoons and the Soviet Yaks and Lavwatchkins into this armada. Yeah, one mad Nazi swallow could dash through the sky at insane speed, chasing flocks of piston engine fighters. So what? Let it dash all at once. Sooner or later, it will end up on the final leg of its glide path, trying to land where it will be easily shot down, as it won't be able to maneuver. Not one, not two, not even 10 of Goering's aces have met their ends exactly like that. To protect the Schwalbe while it was taking off and landing, the Germans had to attract entire squadrons of Luftwaffe piston engine fighters. At this time, they weren't repelling raids on the Reich cities and factories. They weren't intercepting scouts, weren't hunting for enemy fighters. They were just burning tons of precious gasoline at low altitude while being extremely vulnerable to classic boom and zoom attacks. 1 for, 1 against. Let's look at the strategic level then. An hour of the Jet Swallow's flight cost the Treasuries several times more than a similar flight of the Focke-Wulf 190. Also, you could teach any village mechanic to service a piston engine aircraft in a month. But a turbine required specialists with at least an engineering degree. Moreover, the Schwalbe devoured another much more valuable and irreplaceable resource with devastating greed: time. Here, the data varies from source to source, but on average, it required from 10 to 12 times more man-hours of groundwork to ensure a safe flight than the same Focke-Wulf 190. And what do you think would happen to it in a hypothetical battle against 10 of these Focke-Wulfs? Nothing good. Apparently, the United States and Great Britain were guided by the same considerations when they decided not to force the development of jet engines. The experimental R-59s and prototypes of the Shooting Star calmly accumulated their flying hours. The Vampires and the Meteors slowly passed their tests. And the Soviet Union, even though severely damaged in that war, quickly caught up with its former allies. But the Schwalbe was no longer in the sky. It was a breakthrough. It came ahead of its time. But it was also completely unprofitable in terms of the ruthless economy of the war. It didn't delay the end of the Reich. Come to think of it, it probably even brought it closer. There aren't a lot of tanks with recoilless weapons in War Thunder. At the moment, there are only 5 of them. To be exact, the Japanese Type 60 SPRG-C, the Italian R3T106FA, and the Fiat 6614, plus the American T114 and the M50. However, their performance characteristics and gameplay are special enough to devote a separate segment of the show to them. So, what's so different here? To get the gist of it, let's first remember how more classic tanks are built. An important part of their construction is a recoil system. It has to withstand the impulse of a heavy barrel when it shoots, then smoothly return it to its place, and finally gently extinguish the recoil so that the hull doesn't collapse. This is a complex and cumbersome system, and the entire structure gains a lot of weight with it. Therefore, if it's possible to get rid of it, we can get a combat vehicle with a set of properties that you can rarely find in a single machine. First of all, tanks like these borrow the main advantages of light vehicles: speed and agility. In War Thunder, these advantages are backed with scouting abilities and low SP cost. At the same time, they get a very powerful weapon that you can't expect to see on such machines. This combination allows you to quickly flank your enemies, inflict tremendous amounts of damage in the enemy rear, and fight against their armored monsters on equal terms. Before you go into battle, you need to master the shooting. Oddly enough, it's noticeably different from other tanks. We're not talking about ballistics here, but about the areas where you should hit the enemy for optimal effect. After all, our goal isn't just to pierce the armor, but to inflict maximum damage. Take the Royal Tiger, for example. What's the first thought that comes to mind?
If I can pierce it in the upper glacis plate, I shoot in the upper glacis plate.
But a shot like that won't be particularly powerful. In tanks with recoilless weapons, our primary choice of ammo is Hesh rounds, and the fragments from these are formed perpendicular to the armor plate, which means that it's way more effective to aim at the roof of the turret. That way, you can disable 3 crew members and the gun breech with a single shot. There's also another method of shooting which implies using the projectile's powerful HE effect. Since these babies carry more than 5 kilograms of TNT equivalent explosives, we will pick the same Royal Tiger as our target and send it back to the hangar with a single shot in the front of the turret, because our explosives caused the detonation of the ammo rack in the hull. Okay, we've figured out the shooting. Now, let's talk about the specifics of the machines themselves. After all, they also differ markedly from each other. Italy's wheeled vehicles are among the fastest machines in the game. At the very beginning of the battle, they can rapidly take positions where the enemy doesn't yet expect any trouble. Few people are able to react to the sudden appearance of such a threat, and during this surprise round, you can very well send a couple of your slower opponents creeping towards the center of the map into the hangar and hide from sight afterwards. Americans and Japanese are slower than Italians, but they are also less noticeable and better suited for ambushes. Also, you want to use terrain features, since recoilless guns are located outside the battle compartment. The designers made it so that the powder gases wouldn't harm the crew, and this gives you an important tactical advantage. You can expose your gun from behind a hill without risking the hull. The main drawback of tanks with recoilless guns is their limited ammunition. Also, it's especially important to know the enemy's vulnerable areas, so that you can inflict maximum damage without wasting precious rounds in vain. And of course, don't rush to defend points. This is not your task. You won't last long sitting in one place in the tank without enough armor. The first question was sent by a player called Oliver Squid. Can you shoot a cannon round through 2 aircraft? Without a doubt. Even if you fire AP projectiles from a 20 or 30 millimeter air cannon, you can ground multiple targets with a single shot. And if you pilot the Henschel B3 with a 75 millimeter weapon, you can make it quite the massacre. On the other hand, in real life, targets will rarely form a straight line for you to pierce through. But surely you understand that on your own. Then there is a message sent by Ksatria12. Next video recommendation, the Churchill Tank family. Nice. We'll definitely make this one sometime. Thanks for the suggestion. Another suggestion came from Echo 7. Please, Gaijin, for the next shooting range, Pages of History, the first jet aces. Thank you for the idea, but this topic is so huge that we just won't be able to fit it into one episode. In the beginning of the supersonic age, there were aces in Germany, among the Allies, in the USSR, and lots of their stories deserve not just to be mentioned, but to be told as separate pages of history. If we try cramming every one of them in a single episode, you'll get a long Yellow Pages video consisting only of names. We'll think about how to better cover this topic for you. And the last question for today was written by Ross the Boss 101. Why do some aircraft rip? And what maneuvers should you avoid doing if so? Sometimes an aircraft crumbles mid-air for the same reason it's able to fly in the first place. Because air isn't a vacuum. It resists objects that contact with it. And at high speed, this resistance can be extremely powerful. You can break an aircraft in a lot of ways. But the most common method is carelessly using your elevators at high velocities, both upon exiting a dive and in a horizontal flight. Well, that's it for today. You've been happily and hungrily watching The Shooting Range by Gaijin Entertainment. So come on, people. Subscribe to this marvelous channel. Press that bell button. Leave a like, 'cause you do. And tell us what you think in the comments below. See you in a week.